Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming out this morning. It's a beautiful, sunny San Francisco morning, as it seems to always be these days. But it's been a difficult morning, as was yesterday. Yesterday morning, an 87-year-old resident of the Sunset District of San Francisco named Alfred Yee was walking on this very street, Geary Boulevard. He was in a crosswalk at 26th Avenue, trying to cross the road when he was struck by an automobile that was turning left onto Geary. Later in the afternoon, he died at San Francisco General Hospital. This morning, this is not yet confirmed, but we are hearing that someone driving a motorcycle at Fulton and 15th Avenue, also here in the Richmond district, was struck and killed by an automobile. So I guess I first want to just express, on my behalf and everyone here, our most profound condolences to the family and friends and anybody who might know either of these individuals or who's impacted by their loss. It's tragic that people are losing their lives in our streets, and that's really, frankly, why we're here today. It's why the city has adopted a goal, a policy to eliminate traffic deaths in San Francisco. And while we're not here to mourn their loss, we certainly want to honor them and again offer our condolences. What we're here to do is to reinforce the notion that these are not accidents. And I would like to urge us all to eliminate the word accident from our vocabulary when we're talking about traffic collisions in our streets. Because the word accident suggests inevitability. Accidents happen. It's just that's what's going to happen. But what we've done here in San Francisco by adopting Vision Zero is say that we do not accept that. We don't accept the inevitability of people getting killed, people getting seriously injured in our streets. It's not something that we are any longer accepting. And it's something that, moreover, that we are actively working together under the leadership of our mayor, together as within the city, but with the greater San Francisco community to make sure that we can achieve that goal of eliminating traffic fatalities in the streets of San Francisco by 2024. There's a number of ways in which we're doing that. Again, under the mayor's leadership, there's a number of physical improvements that are going into the streets. We've already gotten 12 of the 24 so-called Vision Zero projects in the ground. And we're here today to talk about improvements on Geary and on Fulton that we're making. Ironically, the two streets where two people have lost their lives in the last 20 hours, which I think just makes this all the more real and imperative that we make these improvements. It's also enforcing the laws, and we're joined by the San Francisco Police Department today, who's really stepped up to make sure that people know that when they are traveling around San Francisco, no matter how they're traveling, that they're adhering to our traffic laws and regulations. But it's also about education and outreach, so we look to you in the media as partners to help us get the word out that achievement of Vision Zero will require everybody in the city to participate. Everybody has a responsibility. Anytime you step off the sidewalk, you get behind the wheel, you get onto your bike or motorcycle, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're operating safely, that you're traveling safely, that you're aware of your surroundings. So we will continue to do everything that we can to make the city safer. We need everybody to do their part to make the city safer so that we don't have to start press conferences in the future with announcements like these. But there is a lot that we are doing, and it is with the leadership that we're getting from City Hall. The Board of Supervisors adopted Vision Zero's policy, and Mayor Lee has directed all of his departments in the executive branch of government to embrace and accelerate and do everything that we can to make our streets safer. So please join me in welcoming our Mayor Ed Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Let me add that as we take a moment to ponder the circumstances in which these fatalities happened, we are working very hard to make sure that there is less of that. And today we're in District 1 with Supervisor Eric Mar, who also has joined very strongly this effort to put the concrete work into Vision Zero to make it happen. Today, we wanted to demonstrate, as part of an education and awareness campaign, these particular stripings, we call them zebra stripings, on these crosswalks that have in the past been reserved primarily around schools and in mid-street crossings, are now going to become even more dominant in a lot of our intersections, beginning along Geary Street. And these are important, one, because they are and do, in fact, slow down traffic and make people more aware. But they are also part of what I think Ed Riskin and others have been saying in our street safety advocates have been saying that we've got to make people more aware. And if we can make sure that eyes are the first and not other distractions, that the eyes see the crosswalks and see people in the crosswalk using it, that will have an awareness that will penetrate people in vehicles to slow down, to respect the folks that are using the sidewalks and the streets, and to make sure that awareness turns into a higher level of safety on our streets. This is exactly what we're trying to do here. And so you'll see the departments working today, and I'm going to take some physical action and laying down some of these stripes myself. But really it's a demonstration that more of this is going to happen, because we as a city came together and agreed last November that we're going to put some very serious resources into our Vision Zero, so that it isn't just a pronouncement, that we make these things happen on as many street corners as possible. And so we wanted to demonstrate that this is a relatively easier treatment to do, but a higher awareness comes about it. As we work on those more complicated streets and intersections that require designs and a lot of other agencies to be involved in a safety of those intersections and streets, like we have probably here just a half a block away on a very, very busy intersection. At the same time, in addition to the so-called zebra striping that we'll do more of, we're going to also be taking a look at, with our police department and our MTA and our park control officers and others on the street, what streets in our city that we have direct jurisdiction over where we can slow down traffic on an official basis. Even a 5-mile reduction in the speed will allow more awareness and more care to occur on those streets. And so we have named some of those streets that will slow down the speed on, and we've already done so on Sunset and some of the other streets, but we want to name even more streets that will be having our signage as well as our officers on the street help us slow down that speed. These are the two announcements we wanted to make today, but we wanted to assure the public that we are working to redesign other streets, other more complicated streets, make sure that we present safety to be the preeminent policy to be reflected in those streets, but also you'll see me, you'll see the supervisor, you'll see Ed Riskin, as well as others making periodic announcements to keep visibility on this very serious topic of pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, driving safety, to make sure that this awareness is at its highest level, and also to make sure that violators, there will be consequences of that, and that's why our officers are out here today. And again, while we sometimes might feel that we can't solve every particular incident, we can certainly keep a very vigilant and very dedicated effort to continue educating, making those changes with the sincere hope that this will lead to a higher level of safety. This is not about being helpless. This is about taking even more action and rededicating ourselves in light of the lives lost, that we're going to take this as an opportunity to become even more concerted effort that we need to make to prevent these things from happening. We have busy streets in San Francisco, and in many ways that is a good indication of our economy, but we also have to make sure that that's complemented with an even higher level of awareness of safety for everybody. Thank you for being here. Supervisor Eric Mar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Riskin, for being here on the edge of the Richmond District. I'm going to put my notes aside just for 1 second and just reveal that I'm angry. I'm seething inside. Mr. Alfred Yee, 87 years old, the motorcyclist on Fulton. Mr. Alfred Yee, 87 years old, on Geary and 26th Avenue, right outside of a senior center. 2011, an 87-year-old woman on Arguello and Geary, which we knew about for many years. A 3-year-old and a 4-year-old on Fulton, a motorcyclist who was killed on 25th Avenue in Fulton. We've known about these for years. How long will it take for us to take much more rapid action with Vision Zero so we can prevent these unfortunate, and as Mr. Riskin said, they're not accidents, but they're killings, basically. We have to work on education, engineering, and enforcement. So I'm really proud that our Richmond station is here. They're the one station that's really taken to heart Vision Zero that I can see from our police department. And I really thank Simon Silverman, our captain, and the hardworking men and women of the Richmond station for all that they're doing. I'm Eric Mar from the Richmond District. I learned about the press conference yesterday very late, but right afterwards we learned about Mr. Yee's death. So my comments are from my heart. I've been one of the, I think it's 4 supervisors that from the time after Sophia Liu's death in the New Year's time over a year ago, we're saying, look at New York City, look at other cities, what they are doing with the Bicycle Coalition, with Walk SF and a community coalition. We've been advocating for this. I'm glad that Tom McGuire with our Sustainable Streets in the MTA is here to really learn from lessons. My hope is that as we paint stripes, which are really important, as we think about high injury corridors like Geary, but also other streets like Fulton, that we are looking at model practices and we're putting our money where our mouth is as a city. I wanted to say, first of all, that the culture of speeding in San Francisco, our community coalition often says that the culture of speeding in San Francisco places not just pedestrians, but bicyclists and other drivers at risk. There are too many tragedies, not just Mr. Alfred Yee and the motorcyclists, but there are so many others in the Richmond District, but throughout the city. The 2 children that I mentioned, the toddlers, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, hit in the outer Richmond on Fulton. We finally moved to lower the speed limit on Fulton, which I hope is a project that we start to look at throughout the city, like Portland and Seattle have been doing with slow zones and safe routes for seniors and safe routes to schools. But I'm hoping that San Francisco can look at models of other cities and really put our money where our mouth is. I also wanted to say that making the streets safer is a responsibility, as the mayor said, for all of us. But our community coalition of Walk SF, the Bicycle Coalition, the pedestrian advocates have been working on this for many decades. And I would just like to say that we have to listen to the lead of the community groups as well. I think traffic signals like we'll see in front of senior centers, like the new one that's been on Arguello and Geary, the new ones planned for 22nd and Geary, 26th and Geary, right by 2 other senior centers, are good examples of safe routes for seniors. And my hope is that we look at the model of safe routes to schools and to implement that around other vulnerable areas as well. I think as Go Geary, Geary Rapid, or as some call it, the Geary Bus Rapid Transit project moves forward, it's a great opportunity for us to look at how Vision Zero can be implemented along this high injury corridor called Geary Boulevard. I think it's really important that we act now, and that I, as the supervisor for the Richmond, urge Mr. Mayor, Mr. Riskin, and the MTA to move as quickly as possible so we prevent deaths and high injury corridor accidents as well. I think reducing the speed limit on Fulton to 30 is an important step. 30 miles per hour in many ways is not that much of a reduction, but I think as our Department of Public Health and others have said, that slowing down saves lives, and I think we'll see that on Fulton, but we need much more help as well. I wanted to lastly say that I think the Vision Zero Committee of the Board of Supervisors, we're meeting this afternoon at 2. I'm going to do my best to look at best practices as been presented by the MTA and our Transportation Authority, and to move as rapidly as we can, not just in the Richmond, but citywide. I think safety should be first, as the mayor said, and I'm here to say that for the Richmond District, after these 2 tragic deaths, I'm going to do everything I can to work with the mayor and the MTA to speed up the process so that we prevent any deaths for the future. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Supervisor Mar, Mr. Mayor. I will say the supervisor has, for many years, been one of the strongest advocates for street safety and transit improvements, particularly along Geary and Fulton. Again, somewhat ironically, but we are, I will assure you, working with our partners in the city to make sure that the transit improvements that we're designing, such as on Geary Boulevard, are fully incorporating all the best practices in terms of pedestrian safety. So we both improve transit reliability and pedestrian safety at the same time. And we're looking at ways such as these crosswalks for anything we can do as we're designing the full project. So we're not waiting for the big projects. We're doing what we can, lowering speed limits on Fulton, putting in the crosswalks on Geary to get things safer as soon as we possibly can. And I again want to thank the mayor for his leadership in pulling all the city agencies together and engaging with the community, with the advocates, with the victims of the families to make sure that we're getting this work done as fast as we can. I am gonna ask the mayor and the supervisor to help us lay the paint on, I think, what is the final crosswalk of dozens that we've done along Geary Boulevard. I do want to acknowledge Tom McGuire, Director of Sustainable Streets, as well as Bridget Smith, the Director of Livable Streets, who does the planning and design for this work, and then George Reynolds, our Head of Field Operations, whose great crews you see all over the city, putting this paint on the ground to make our streets safer. So I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I'm going to now ask the mayor and the supervisor to help us initiate the painting of this crosswalk.
Get my union card again.
Hi, Mar.
Line continues on the other side of that little place we'll just call it.